sometimes I feel as leaders, there's this tendency to isolate in a time of crisis, and shelter the team from the reality of the situation and try to brainstorm inside my own head or inside our own heads what the solution should be. But I would encourage a lot of folks to do quite the opposite.
We often hear in marketing that 50% of it's working, we just don't know which 50%. Well, today's Ask an Expert has actually solved that. Hi, I'm Joshua Carlson, co-founder of Propelo Media. Today I sit down with Rob Murray. He's the CEO and co-founder of Intrigue Media, and he's going to share their very thorough and detailed approach to evaluating and auditing your current marketing and then providing detailed suggestions on how to boost performance. He's also going to talk about core values, how to be authentic to who you are without being too aspirational so that they can actually be used in an ongoing daily capacity with all of the employees across the organization. Finally, we're going to talk about content strategy. Rob gives a very simple technique that you can use to develop rock solid content that can then be repurposed for multiple channels. Now let's hear what Rob has to say. Rob, I want to welcome you to our Ask an Expert.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm stoked to be here, Joshua.
Perfect. So I want to go back in time. You are the CEO and co-founder of Intrigue Media, and I'd like to just talk about what that process was from concept to actually starting an agency.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, I'll try to keep this one short, but, it's tough to admit I didn't have any grand vision with my business partner, Paul. We were in third year university and kind of wanted to always do something entrepreneurial. So, as we ran out of OSAP money, we realized we needed to make some cash to help pay for tuition. And Paul's dad, so Paul DeMarco, his dad had this idea of putting flat screen TVs in between mirrors of hair salons and selling ad space on the TVs. And so we randomly found a supplier for a random LCD display that could wirelessly take a video feed. And we decided to buy it each for $400. And their last of our OSAP cash, we bought a TV. And then we walked around downtown Guelph asking people if they'd be interested in paying $50 a month to have a video play on this TV if we had it up at the University Center in the hair salon. And so most people said that they would rather have it in the University Center, not in the hair salon. We asked the hair salon owner if he would swing the TV out every day for us. And he said, yeah, happy to do it. His name's Dean. Thank you, Dean. He got us started. And so we started doing it, and our expectation was to do $8,000 in revenue the first year. We would split it and we would use it towards tuition. We ended up doing 20. The next year we ended up doing 60. We thought we were going to do 20 again, but we ended up using a Future Shop credit card to finance 90 days, no interest, no payments, the ad equipment with TV mounts, computer and screen and cables. So every time we would buy equipment for about $2,100, we have 90 days to sell enough advertising to be able to
cover it.
Yeah, to cover it. And so we did that 13 times. And then we ended up getting enrolled in sales training with the Sandler Sales Institute, which was one of the best decisions we ever made. And through them met an investment company at Waterloo. We sold a third of the business to them for way more than we thought it would be worth. And then moved the business model into Kitchener-Waterloo, into Cambridge, and then franchised it out to Markham. And then in 2010, this is all 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010. A lot of our clients, we had a whole bunch, maybe like 100.
Okay.
And not paying us a lot of money, but just a lot of clients. And they started asking us when we were going to start building websites, how to get to the top of Google, what's this social media thing all about? And so we really tried to not get into it, but we had really good relationships with clients. And so eventually we just said, F it, let's go. And then over the last 10 years, that's been, really propelling the growth of the company.
Okay, so your process was really, it starts with a great idea, and you guys are scaling up and then selling it, but then the evolution of the agency itself was really pent up by customer demand.
Yeah, and pressure to get results. We'd always get the question, how do I know it's going to work, or how can I prove return on investment? And with out-of-home advertising, it's difficult, not impossible, but difficult.
Sure.
And with online marketing, it's not perfect, but it's a lot better and a lot more clear.
Okay. So in those early days, and I think you touched on it a little bit, but how did you actually get out there and start touching new clients? Was it as simple as beating the streets with literally walking door to door? Or did you guys implement any type of marketing strategy yourself?
Beat the pavement, feet to the street. Yeah. We walked around downtown Guelph every day for 2 years. Okay. And eventually people would just buy from us because they're like, I've seen you walking around here for 2 years. We know you guys are legit. So, and then we picked up the phone. We called everybody. Literally, we called everybody. And we kind of took this approach that, you know, the business that we were in was really the rock turning business. You picture the idea of being on a beach covered in stones, and our job was to go turn over every single stone.
Right.
And out of 1,000 stones, you have 800 where there's nothing there. You have 50 where there's a crab that wants to bite you, and you got 150 people that want to talk to you. So it was really that simple. And then as we got busier, we started becoming a bit more sophisticated. But when you've got nothing but time, we did a lot more active prospecting. And then we got really involved in community, and going and sponsoring community events and going to community events, and really involved in networking and taking leadership positions within community organizations like chambers of commerce or the hospitals or any not-for-profits like that.
Okay, so in those early days when you are beating the streets and you're literally turning over every single stone, is there something that you relied on to give you the faith that this was going to work out? I mean, obviously you have limited options back in that time, so it's like, this is all we got right now, but what keeps you going when you're turning over 800 rocks and a lot of those, to your point, are not turning into, you know, shiny customers?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, there was this thing from our trainer called 3SWN, some will, some won't, so what next?
Okay.
And we really were diligent in tracking our conversion metrics. So we knew that if we made 8 phone calls, we would get a connection with a decision maker. If we had 4 conversations, we'd get a meeting booked. If we had 4 meetings, we'd get an agreement signed. And the sample size of data was, you know, whatever, 2,000, 2,500 phone calls, and it was repeatable. So it was just about doing the behavior and finding the right people and really walking through a sales process. So, you know, I think it's really about not letting, like, the no's were just, every single time you get a no, you're closer to the yes.
Okay. That's a
Just
great philosophy.
embrace the no, get the answer, and then move on to the next one. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I want to shift gears. I want to talk about what you guys are doing now. You guys have a MAP program, marketing action plan. I'd love for you to share a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure, man. Thanks for asking. So yeah, I mean, the map really is over a decade of like everything we've learned and tried to figure out, not only from like a getting client results side, but also being really clear and transparent, both with our team and our clients up front as much as possible.
Okay.
And so the whole idea behind the marketing action plan is prescription without diagnosis is malpractice.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of folks doing something probably pretty similar where we need to understand what someone wants to accomplish, what their business goal is, what marketing goal will help accomplish or feed into the business goal, to better understand what we can be responsible for, what the budget is to accomplish that goal, because there is an there's an economics of marketing that I think a lot of people don't quite understand.
Right.
You know, some folks think that if they spend $100,000, they should expect, you know, $2 million in gross margin coming back from the 100,000, but the economies of marketing don't work like that.
Right.
So we need to understand, based on their budget and their goal, if it's realistic, and then if we're in a space to win. And once we've got that figured out in the initial couple sales meetings, then we can say, okay, you know what, this could be a good fit for a marketing action plan. It's pretty simple. You know, we do an A-client profile, so we understand the people that they really want to go after by name, not just by segment or by business type. It's like very specific, like tell me about Joe and Suzanne. And we go through about an hour-long questionnaire to figure out what the core focus of the campaign will be, blah, blah, blah. And then once we get that, we gather all the logins that we require for someone's website, Google Analytics, AdWords, Facebook, Instagram, you know, whether it's an email account, HubSpot, MailChimp, whatever it might be. And then we go in and do a whole bunch of different audits. And so based on what we're actually looking to do for the client, we have the people that actually do the work, do the audits. One of the things that's kind of maybe a little bit different, not to say from all other agencies, but from a lot that we've talked to, is that the people that do the work scope the work. So we don't have owners scoping work and telling people what to do. We have the technicians and the leads within those teams scope the work that they're actually going to implement. Okay. So all the login information goes to them. They do their scopes and analysis. It comes back as a cohesive plan. It's laid down dollar by dollar to the penny, month by month, strategy by strategy. It's extremely specific to the person's company. And it's like super transparent. We have in our map process, when we actually end up presenting it to somebody, it's a 12-month schedule. There's no retainers. We don't have anything where we don't know what we're going to do. Everything's laid out. It's spelled out. It's methodically planned. We're actually not very good at doing things ad hoc. So if there's clients out there that want to like ask us to do something, you know, next week, we're really not good at it. We really kind of plan 6 and 12 months at a time. And so then what's really cool is everything from the marketing action plan gets put into action items. Those action items generate invoices. And then at the end of the month, we send you a report that shows all the action items that are done that line up with the invoice that you received. So you can see if all the work that has been promised has been completed, with a whole bunch of notes around what was actually done within those action items, or we call promises.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. And I like the fact that you guys are turning away the ad hoc because those can be, you know, frustrating, and it's just too much busy work for a small project. I want to get back to the beginning though, and I want to talk about targeting. What's your guys' approach when you're working with clients? I feel like sometimes clients come in and they've actually got their pulse on, hey, yeah, we really understand who our ideal customer profile is. But sometimes clients think they do, but they really don't. So what's your process working with clients?
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, we're in a similar position where I'd say that most clients, when they come to us, have a pretty good idea of what they want to do, but they don't have necessarily specifically have outlined their buyer personas.
Yep.
And then one of the things we want to do is also help. So let's say they have, you know, 4 customer segments that they have, you know, revenue from, and say it's, you know, whatever, 20% each. And then there's a whole bunch that create the other 20%.
Yeah.
We really want to help people get focused, and the more focused we get, the better we can do our job. So really kind of focusing in on a core target audience. So we had a really cool business come in. I mean, I can't say what it is because it's like a brand new business model. And I mean, I'll tell you at some point, but they had like, you know, these 4 or 5 different customer segments, including, you know, millennials that are, you know, working, they're out of home. There's you got your busy family with, you know, young children with like 2 or 3 kids. And then, you know, there's a couple other ones, but out of the 4 or 5 customer segments, there was one that really just didn't know they exist and already want to buy the stuff. Right. And so one of the things that we really try to help our clients understand is that we really can't convince anybody of anything. So our job as a marketer isn't to try to tell the world why they should use you. Our job is actually to find the people that love your stuff. They just don't know you're there. And then on top of that, making sure that the client's being authentic to actually who they are and how they run their business differently than their competitors. So that way, when we communicate it, people that actually like the way it's being run, when they experience it, it's a match. You know, there's so many times where we see, you know, I don't want to name any companies, but they're making promises that they don't deliver on. And so one of the things we really try to help our clients understand is that, you know, if you can be really authentic with who you are and how you operate, we'll just bring that to life, and then make the people that like the way you do business reach out to you. Like, people that like retainers don't like working with us because we're so specific. And they're like, well, how can you be so specific? That's like, well, this is just how we operate. This is what works really well. We want to be transparent. It's one of our core values, practice open honest communication. You know, we're not good at ad hoc. We're good at planning and executing the plan, you know, like plan the work the plan kind of thing.
Yep.
If you want to change your mind every 3 weeks, we're not a good company for you. That's not what we believe in. Yeah. So we also believe in empowering our team. So if you want to work with the owner on every account, like if everybody that's coming to us wants to work with myself or Paul, that's not going to happen because we don't believe in building our business that way. So if you believe in, you know, a very methodical planned approach to consistent, you know, marketing strategy over a year, you want to stick to that plan, and you want to be authentic to who you are and what you believe in. And you want to work with a team of empowered leaders that know their stuff better than I do.
Yep.
And yeah, we would probably be a good fit for that type of client. But if you want the owner, like, well, you probably don't even want me. Like, I don't even know. Like, no one wants to work with me. They say they do, but it's just not true.
It's just a pretty face, right?
Well, I wouldn't even go that far, but I appreciate it.
Certainly. Well, you touched on something that has been an underlying theme that I've heard from a number of guests that have been on, which is the customer experience. So be authentic, you know, be real to your business, be real to your customers. It's clearly something that's important for you guys, but how often are you having to reshape kind of the mental philosophy of clients that you're working with to say, hey, we can bring you a lot of business, but if you treat them poorly, you're going to be losing business is just as fast as you're getting it.
Yeah. The reality situation is we used to try doing that. Now we just don't bother.
Okay.
We just have to part ways. Like, you know, we've had people say, all these people that are calling me, they're great, but they're crap leads. And, they call and they say, hey, do you sell Oakley sunglasses? And they're like, no. And they hang up the phone instead of asking questions about what is it about Oakley that you like? I've got some stuff that you might find, whatever. So we've definitely got a little bit into sales training and sales coaching with some folks, but that's more tactical than it is like philosophical. If someone really is trying to pull the sheet over someone's eyes when it comes to the way they want to market, we're really just, it doesn't work.
Okay. One of the things that I really like about your guys' agency is you're big on values. So leadership is something that you see transparent from page one. I want to talk about the importance of having these core values, not just stenciling them on the wall, right? Hey, look, we've got the buzzwords, but actually making them an institution of your business.
Yeah. I mean, that's, super critical. The kicker, I guess first, well, why do it? It's so people can make decisions without having to ask questions. If core values are instilled well through an organization, then people can make a decision. Well, coming in, do I want to be part of an organization that actually embodies these values?
Right.
And then B, once I'm part of the organization, is the decision I'm making line up with the values of the company? Now, we're not quite there with everybody. There's over 30, 35 of us. Not everybody is necessarily, lining their decisions up with core values every day. So it's not like it's something that you finish the job. It's going to be continuous.
Right.
But it's really helpful when a team comes in or a team member comes on board, they get the core value orientation. It's part of the interview recruitment process. It's part of everything. And then over the next 2, 3, 6 months, they start to see everything come to life. And that's where, Good to Great was a big influence for us with Jim Collins. Yep. And one of the repeated messages in that book from Jim was, as an organization, there needs to be mechanisms to put teeth into values, into vision, into purpose, whatever it might be. There has to be a way visibly to bring a value to life in the organization every day, week, month. And I think that's the biggest thing that's helped us live it out so that people can see it. But the other thing is, going back to what we were saying before, the values are authentic to the team when we started as a smaller group. So it's easier to live out every day because it's just identifying what we did that made us who we were. And as opposed to when we first started going down the values conversation of what do we think we should be? I think that's a big kind of fork in the road that a lot of people get caught in. When you go through, like, our first strategy session around values was all based around a whole list of words and circling words that you like and writing words. And it became very aspirational as opposed to realistic and observational.
Yeah.
And there's a really cool exercise called the Mission to Mars. And it's a Jim Collins thing where you take your key people, the people that you think are the best in your organization, and you walk them through this, it's kind of like a half day or a full day workshop around the values of the company. Anyway, if you Google Jim Collins Mission to Mars, there's a very concrete way to get through it. So then that's why we did it.
Yeah. Well, I like the fact that you were reflective of what you are versus, trying to be too aspirational. But you mentioned the teeth, right? And making sure that those are, you're biting into it all across. What are the methods that you guys implemented? You obviously have an onboarding that says, hey, here are the values, and no doubt you hire to those values. So there's some alignment when somebody comes on, but what's the ongoing process? We have Values Wednesday. So we actually, when we huddle, somebody, everybody gets a turn, and it goes around and you pick one of the values and you just kind of talk about an observation about what we're seeing, whether it's with a client or internal, and that highlights and accentuates that value.
Awesome. That's huge, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so essentially every core value we have has got some teeth into it. So our core values is C flat. So it's client, fun, learning, leadership, action, team, and trust. And then we just put an acronym to it to make it memorable. But we exist to serve our clients. This kind of comes up every day when we're asking ourselves, what should we do here? If a project is stuck, or if somebody with agencies, getting a website live with a client could be a pain in the ass. But telling a client well, we have you scheduled and we have our capacity scheduled and planned for you. So you have to get us this content for this day. Well, that's not client centric. That's us centric.
Right.
And so like, well, what's the conversation need to be? Yes, we need to get the project done, but why did they do the website in the beginning? Well, they thought they were missing out on money. Well, how much money do they think they were actually missing out on an annual basis?
Right.
And then reminding them of like, this is why we're doing the project. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if that's still a concern, let's get our butts into gear and get going. But if it's not, then, I mean, we're not going to sit here and pull your arm. You just pay us the money and we'll wait when you're ready. So just being a bit more client first is really important, and having that core value, and our team leads always, beating that drum. Leadership, do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it, is really important. We have a whole bunch of mechanisms around that. Specifically, we use a thing called roadmaps, which help people develop personally. There's goals for the next 30, 90, 1 year long term. So next 30 days, 90 days, 1 year long term, for 10 different areas of your life, whether it's at work, whether it's fitness, financial, vacation, books to read, people to meet, things to stop doing. And every team lead works with their team on making those goals come to life. Learning, we have a program called Leader Building. Once a week, someone has to learn either through reading a chapter of a book, watching a video, listening to a podcast, reading an article, whatever it might be. And then they post it in Slack within their cohort of what their learning was that week. And then on Monday morning, we all share what our learning was in a group team huddle. So, I mean, there's some examples. We have more. We also use these things, awesome citations.
Okay.
So, yeah. I don't know if you know about there's 12 questions that create a great organization from Gallup Poll International.
No, I don't know that.
Anyway, so it was a global study. There was like, tens and tens of thousands of people, actually hundreds of thousands of people have taken the survey. But it's an organizational health checkup. And it gives statements like, I have the tools to do my job well. I know what's expected of me at work. In the last 7 days, I've received praise for doing good work. I have a good friend at work. And so essentially it's strongly agree to strongly disagree on all those things.
Sure.
Across all organizations that have done that survey, the one that scored the lowest was, I've received praise for doing good work in the last 7 days. We scored low in that category when we first did the survey. We did pretty well overall, but our lowest score was that one.
Okay.
And we started giving praise to people. And then we did the survey again 6 months later, and nothing really changed. So we said, well, maybe we need to make it more visible, which is where awesome citations came from.
Right.
And what was really neat with these is that Paul and I would give them out on a weekly basis. But then after a couple of weeks of doing it, people started asking us where the stacks were, and they started giving them to each other. And they started to collect them and talk about something that's super simple. It takes 30 seconds. And now as a leadership team, we do it as a group once a week, and we give out an awesome citation. These days we take a picture and then post it on Slack before we put it on someone's desk. And we tell the person, like in this case, this is one for Seth. It was for demonstrating team and leadership, for stepping up on the Intrigue approach designing websites, because we're doing a big training program to align the company. And he just did a great job. So that's a really cool, easy mechanism to put teeth in core values over time.
Well, kudos to you guys. I mean, I think that that's awesome. It's a creative way. And I love that you had the observation after a couple of weeks, hey, this isn't really working. Let's make it practical, in a physical product. And it's fun, right? I mean, it's a cool little twist. So good for you guys. I want to talk about, we're obviously in a really weird time, right? Mid-March hits. And everything just kind of gets turned upside down. So I want to talk about, as we go through kind of this crisis and these challenges, what kind of lessons have you learned, in leading your team and working with clients through this?
Yeah, that's a really cool question. And I've thought about it quite a bit. So first lesson I learned was stick to your knitting. Okay. When shit hit the fan, we started looking at a whole bunch of new initiatives to start to augment the revenue loss that we were experiencing. One out of the 3 initiatives went really well. 2 of them fell flat, were a bit of waste of time. We also have this idea of fire bullets before cannonballs. So try to do something low risk to see if it hits the mark. If it hits the mark, then invest more into it.
Yep.
And then also looking at different ways to get paid. So as an agency, going out, essentially selling fixed fee for service, there wasn't as much confidence in the marketplace to commit to that type of stuff. So we looked at maybe doing shorter term arrangements or changing the way we get paid with a mix between, say, fixed fee for versus total variable pay.
Okay.
So complete pay for result, and a hybrid of between the two where it's fixed plus variable.
Mm-hmm.
And then the whole idea is really honing in on the client types that we know we can win for, and then going to them and saying, hey, we have a mutual gain model. You know, COVID's obviously shook everybody's confidence.
Right.
There's little risk for you to participate in this arrangement because you only pay based on the result we provide. Now we get paid more doing it that way than we would if it was fixed fee because we're taking all the risk. But because confidence is low, it's seemingly being taken on really well. And what's also neat with it is when we show people the 3 different pricing models, the fixed fee is actually the lowest price. And so people start to gravitate to it, even though it's what we normally would do, but because they're seeing the other pricing options and our confidence to deliver, they say, well, you know what, actually, I'd rather just do the fixed fee. And so having those different pricing options has been really helpful. So we're still doing what we do. We're not changing what we do. We're just changing the way we get paid.
Right.
And that was a really cool pivot for us. It wasn't like pivoting our business model per se. It was just pivoting the way we get paid.
Okay. Well, and I think that's a good takeaway. Staying in your lane, staying with what you're good at, but just looking to say, hey, is there a different way that we can approach this? Because I think a lot of businesses miss that. They just literally, it's like, hey, we need to try something completely different. And they're often running using your metaphor, they're often running in a cannonball direction, and cannonball is so much energy.
Yeah. And it's really tough to get a team behind it quickly. You know, it's one thing for me and 1 or 2 people in the organization to go try something new together.
Yeah.
But then you try to put it through 35 people and systematically, create an organizational force behind it. It's really difficult to do it quick. And then the other thing is defining core capabilities that we need to grow over the next, 3 years, and really starting to put teeth into those capabilities now. So like we understand, or think anyway, that we need to make a bet on B2B lead gen and on CRM. And so over the last 90 to 120 days, we've put a lot of effort in building our chops in those core competencies, so that we can kind of position ourselves next year and in the future. So doing stuff now, but also looking into how we can sharpen our sword for tomorrow.
Okay. One of the things that we've seen, obviously everybody's seen, and we're using it now, is video. So I'm curious, video is something that you guys have actually worked with your clients on. So I'd like to just talk about how you have historically worked with video, but then are you guys looking at different ways to leverage video in a way that is different now that we're in a different kind of world?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, one of the things that we always want to work with our clients, we use videos for, lots of things, just kind of like you understand, but we use it for warming up audiences, specifically in social media and on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, and LinkedIn, because video view campaigns are really cost effective. And then you warm up an audience, and then you hit them up with a call to action to download something, and then maybe a call to action to get pricing or quote after that. So tip videos we find are really, really helpful. So we do like a full day shoot, break it up into 10, 12 tip videos that are 30 to 45 seconds long. And that's been really effective, especially in things that aren't timely. So if you're in insurance, or if you're in construction, if you're, trying to figure out, what to do with your landscape, if you're trying to figure out what to do with your HVAC system, whatever, those things are pretty timeless. But now when COVID happened, everybody became really okay with selfie videos. Yeah. And the professional production expectation kind of eased up a bit. It didn't help necessarily our clients because they didn't necessarily want to do it on their own. So we still needed to, kind of push more of the edge, being that personal trainer. Yeah. But it's definitely something that our team embraced and is trying to lead through example by posting their own videos that they're doing, and they're getting tons of traction, using them on LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. So yeah, I mean, there's a ton of reasons and ways to use video, and I don't want to go on and on because you probably know it better than I do. But yeah, I just think the candid video became a bit more okay since COVID happened.
Well, I just love it because it broke down the facade that a lot of businesses put up, and it actually spoke to authenticity that you talked about earlier and being real to who you are. And I just love it. And I like you, I think the personal trainer is a great metaphor for, getting clients to like, hey, they're shy and bashful, but once they kind of got used to it, suddenly I feel like there's a lot of light bulb moments of like, oh my gosh, like this is a way that I can speak authentically in a way that I otherwise never even thought was possible.
Yeah, totally. And like the idea of littering videos all across your website on your contact page, like put a video on your contact page, letting people know what's going to happen when they fill out the form.
Yeah.
If you call us, this is what you can expect. If you fill out a form, this is what you can expect. And you can do it with a selfie video and you can build so much trust. Yeah, I think there's lots of room for video. There's no question about it.
Well, I'm going to take that soundbite out and I'm going to show it to a client of mine that I'm currently talking about trying to do explicitly that. Like, hey, yeah, you have an opportunity to bring your website to life. So let's do it. They're a little hesitant. So maybe a second voice will help get it over the finish line. I just want to talk about content strategy in general. I think, most businesses, and certainly me, I felt this way for a number of years. We know we need to do it, but content it's really just a slog, right? It's frustrating. And a lot of times we don't have the right strategy. We don't have a strategy at all, which is probably one of the biggest, pillars to get over. But what is the process to develop a good strategy that turns it from being a slog into something that actually can become fun?
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, outside of video, because I think video can be a ton of fun and used all over the place, just like you're going to do with this piece of content. The idea of, we call it cornerstone content, but you can call it anything you want. I mean, that's kind of an SEO term, but if we help our clients by understanding, okay, what are the frequently asked questions you're getting from folks when they call you, email you, walk through your door? What types of things do you want people to know about when making a purchase decision for your type of stuff? So for example, in windows and doors, people don't have a clue about the technology behind windows and doors. Similar for lots of stuff, HVAC's a great example.
Sure.
Even bikes are a good example. Snowboard, you name it. Like there's so many purchases that we make that we don't really understand what is behind it from a technology perspective or what's even important. And so we don't want to go technical, but we want to help people understand what's important and what kind of questions they should be asking when they're making a purchase decision. And so if we look at the frequently asked questions and the type of information that you think people should know when making a purchase decision for your type of stuff, you've just created a guide for how to buy your stuff. Now, it doesn't have to be from you, but it can be your position to buy. Here's a guide for buying windows. Here's a guide for buying or hiring an HVAC contractor. Here's a guide for whatever. It's middle of the funnel content. It's all around making a good purchase decision. Now, what's really cool with that is if you do a guide, it's probably gonna end up being, say, 15, 20 pages. It doesn't have to be crazy bullet points with images.
Yep. That
15, 20 pages can then be broken down into probably 10 blogs. Each blog can be broken up into probably 5 or 6 social posts. And that can be shared. Each blog can be put in your email newsletter. The guide for itself can be put into your email newsletter. It can also be used for a conversion campaign. And so you have this one guide. Now it's broken down into blog posts, broken down into social posts. And instead of having to come up with 60 different social posts, you wrote one guide and it cascaded into everything else.
Right.
And so that's been really effective, not only for ourselves, but for a lot of clients. So they don't have to try to think about what to write every single day because it can be daunting when it gets busy.
Okay. Well, I like that because it basically forces the product manager to think about what the consumer should be asking, but doesn't know that they need to ask about the product, right? We're the product experts. We understand all the bells and whistles and we get super excited about it, but we have to think about it from the end consumer because that's the one that we want to actually consume this. When it comes to content, do you feel like the quality of the content is more important than channel strategy, or are they equally important?
Well, I mean, I think it's the quality for sure is more important than where they end up, because if you have garbage content going out, then you're going to kill the trust that you're trying to build with people when they buy your stuff. So, yeah, I mean, getting a good piece of content done is better than crap content. But I also say ship it, get it out. A lot of people when it comes to content get caught up on grammar and tone. But when it comes to social specifically, and even business these days, I believe the more it's written the way you speak, the better. so that if someone reads your stuff and then they meet you, they're like, oh yeah, I already know who you are or your company, and I get the tone of it.
Right.
And, I just feel like people get caught up in what should be like kind of an academic writing style as opposed, or a business writing style, and instead of just being real, which is again, coming back to this whole idea of authenticity.
Yeah.
And you know what, if you make a spelling mistake, it doesn't look the greatest. But if you're going to wait to post something until 2 people edit it, then, it's tough.
The window
So,
passes.
yeah. So, I mean, if you hire somebody, there shouldn't be a spelling mistake and the tone should be on point. But I mean, I think for some people, they just need to get out of their way, and just, get a bit more vulnerable. One of the things that I used to tell people about was like, just start off writing by, I don't know what to write. Just write, I don't know what to write. So I'm trying to write my first blog post. And then once you get that inertia done, it's amazing what comes from it. And then the last thing that people, I think, really need to consider when they're writing content is what problems are people having that are symptoms of something that they need to get a solution for, but they don't even know that they've got a problem big enough. And I think a lot of times people are really focused, like, to simplify the purchase funnel. I mean, the top part of the purchase funnel, we got, the top, the tofu, mofu, bofu. So top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel. Everybody focuses on the bottom of get a quote, buy this. The middle of the funnel, how to buy something, is really valuable. And the top of the funnel, are you experiencing these problems? Is really helpful, because a lot of people, they'll see condensation in their patio doors and maybe they don't even think it's an issue. Maybe it isn't, but if you are experiencing that, you might want to check this out just in case.
Right. No, sage advice. And I love the asking of the question, right? Because that prompts, again, we as consumers, a lot of times just don't even think of the things that, to your point, condensation in a patio door. What is that? What is that about? Well, unless somebody prompts me, it's just condensation in the patio door. And there's a missed opportunity in the marketplace for me to re-engage.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you think that's important right now that we haven't covered that you want to make sure we highlight?
I mean, lots of things, but is there a certain, like, in terms of clients or team, or what do you think?
Just for businesses in general right now. And that's been kind of the genesis of where this episode and the series has come from, is just trying to give business leaders ideas. And obviously we're in a tumultuous kind of environment right now. So you've given a lot of great ideas as far as what you guys have done. But so just anything that might be able to help businesses right now.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool. I mean, there's 2 ideas and they're kind of the same.
Okay.
Sometimes I feel as leaders, and this was for myself a little bit at the beginning, and I've heard it from a lot of other folks, there's this tendency to isolate in a time of crisis, and shelter the team from the reality of the situation, and try to brainstorm inside my own head or inside our own heads what the solution should be. But I would encourage a lot of folks to do quite the opposite. Engage everybody as much as possible, let people know what's going on. We just had a team lunch this afternoon, and we let people know that, like, November and December aren't looking really good right now. And, like, we've had a pretty good year so far, and we're looking like we're going to hit our bonus program. But if we don't turn the ship around, we're going to end the year pretty crappy. Right. And we gave people full disclosure of what's going on. It's not doom and gloom, but it's real.
Yep.
And now we're actually activating, people are like, well, what can we do? What can I do to help move the ship? And we're going into our quarterly planning process where everybody's going to get their rocks so they can contribute. But if they don't know the reality of the situation, they're going to be thinking that they can just start doing these other things that don't necessarily deal with the reality of the situation. So engage the team, get more minds involved, and talk through issues. Don't think through issues. I think it's just really important that we get talking, which is cool. I'm stoked that you're doing this. And if you don't have someone to talk to as an entrepreneur or as a leader, finding a mentor or a peer group, I think invaluable.
100%. Yeah. I think one, the transparency, right? I think more organizations in good times and bad should be focused on that transparency. And it works both ways. One of the things I think is interesting, I talked with a guest and he talked about how, improving the customer experience, leadership needs to be involved in that. Right. So leadership needs to come down to the ground level, whether it's weekly or monthly, and engage with the customers directly to hear that feedback, because that transparency, it does go both ways. But the mentorship, I think, is fantastic. I think almost a lot of people undervalue, at least mentally. But yet every successful person that we've had on the show has a coach, they have a group, there's something above them that is helping them along the ways. Because just because we're at the top in our organization doesn't mean we're at the top in our field.
Yeah, no doubt. And it doesn't have to even be in our own field, right? Anywhere the mentorship can come from. But I
Right.
just think it's so important to talk through stuff because we get in our own heads. There's a tendency to go negative spirals. So the more you can get things out, the more you can see if it actually makes sense or if it's crazy when you say it.
I like it.
Yeah.
Well, Rob, I want to thank you for coming on.
Hey,
Really
thanks, man.
appreciate your time, and look forward to checking in with you again soon.
Okay, thanks so much, Joshua. I really appreciate the time together.
All right. Thanks.